Hey guys, it's me here, Tayo-chan, back with another video. Today we're reading chapter 23 of Stargirl, as you can read in the title. Yay! I don't have anything to say, so I'll just read, I guess. Those were the best times when we were alone together out of school. We would take long walks around town and into the desert to her enchanted place. We sat on park benches and people watched. I introduced her to strawberry banana smoothies. I borrowed the pickup and drove us to Red Rock and Glendale. On weekends we went to Archie's. On his back porch, we talked of 1,000 things and laughed and swooned in the pipe smoke and ate pizza. She presented her oratorical contest speech to Senior Sagaro. We never spoke of the shunning. I loved weekends. But Mondays always followed Sundays. And the shunning, it was clear now, had come to me. It was less absolute for me than her, but it was there. I saw it in the eyes that shifted away from mine, the shoulders that turned, the chatter that seemed less loud around me now than before. I fought it. I tested its limits. In the courtyard, between classes, in the lunchroom, I called out to others just to see if they would respond. When someone turned and nodded, I felt grateful. If someone spoke to me, especially if I had not spoken first, I wanted to cry. I had never realized how much I needed the attention of others to confirm my own presence. I told myself that the shunning was more painful for me than for Stargirl. I told myself that she was too busy being herself to notice that she was being ignored, and in fact, she continued to give birthday people a ukulele serenade and to decorate her desk and to distribute assorted kindness. I told myself that even if she did notice, she wouldn't care. I understood why this was happening to me. In the eyes of the student body, she was part of my identity. I was her boyfriend. I was Mr. Stargirl. Students said things, not to me, not directly, but tuned for me to overhear even as they pretended I was nowhere near. They said she was a self-centered spotlight hogger. They said she thought she was some kind of saint. I cringed at that, and that she was better than the rest of us. They said she wanted everyone else to feel guilty for not being as nice and wonderful as she was. They said she was a phony. Most of all, they said she was the reason why the Mika Electrons were not soon to become Arizona State basketball champions. Kevin had been right. When she started cheering for other teams, she'd said something bad to her own team. To see one of their own priming the opposition did something to the team's morale that hours of practice could not overcome. And the last straw, everyone seemed to agree, was the Sun Valley game when Stargirl rushed across the court to aid Kovac, the Sun Valley star. All of this was affirmed by our own star, Ardsley himself, who said that when he saw a Mika cheerleader giving comfort to the enemy, the heart went out of him. She was why they lost the next game so miserably to Red Rock. They hated her for it, and they would never forgive. Unlike Stargirl, I was aware of the constant anger of our... I was aware of the constant anger of our schoolmates, seething like snakes under a porch. In fact, I was not only aware of it, but at times I also understood their point of view. There were even moments when something small and huddled within me agreed with it. But then I would see her smile and take a swan dive into her eyes, and the bad moment would be gone. I saw, I heard, I understood, I suffered. But whose sake was I suffering for? I kept thinking of Senior Sagaro's question. Whose affection do you value more, hers or the others? I became angry. I resented having to choose. I refused to choose. I imagined my life without her and without them, and I didn't like it either way. I pretended it would not always be like this. In the magical moonlight of my bed at the night, I pretended she would become more like them, and they would become more like her, and in the end, I would have it all. Then she did something that made pretending impossible. Oh, that was only 4 minutes. That was a short chapter. I guess I'll read chapter 24 too then, because that was short. Roadrunner. No one said the word to me directly, but I kept hearing it since I arrived at school one day, several days after the kiss on the sidewalk. It seemed more dropped than spoken, so I kept walking into it. Roadrunner. Was there something on the plywood Roadrunner that I should read? I had study hall coming up in third period. I'd look into it then. In the meantime, I had second period Spanish. As I headed for my seat, I looked out the window, which faced the courtyard. There was something written on the roadrunner, all right, but I wouldn't have to go outside to read it. I could read it from here. I could read it from a low-flying airplane. White paper? No, it was a bed sheet. Covered the whole bird. Painted on the sheet in broad red brushstrokes was a Valentine heart enclosing the words, Stargirl loves Leo. My first impulse was to drag the Spanish teacher to the window and say, "Look, she loves me." My second impulse was to run outside and rip the sign away. Until now, I had never been the target of her public extravagance. I felt a sudden, strained kinship with Hillary Kimball. I understood why she had commanded Stargirl not to sing to her. I felt spotlighted on a bare stage. I couldn't concentrate on my schoolwork or anything else. I was a mess. At lunch that day, I was afraid to look at her. I counted one blessing. I had not yet worked up the nerve to sit with her each day. I kept stroking my conversation with Kevin. I felt her presence, her eyes, 3 tables to my left. I knew she was sitting there with Dory Dilson, the only friend who had not deserted her. I felt the faint tug of her gaze on the back of my neck. Ignoring my wishes, my head turned on its own, and there she was, smiling to beat the band, waving grandly, and, horrors, blowing me a kiss. I snapped my head back and dragged Kevin out of the lunchroom. When I finally dared to look again in the courtyard, I found that someone had torn the sign away. Thumbtacks at the corners pinned 4 white scraps of bedsheet to the plywood. I managed to avoid her by taking different routes between classes, but she found me after school, came shouting after me as I tried to slink away. "Leo! Leo!" She ran up to me, breathless, bursting, her eyes sparkling in the sun. "Did you see it?" I nodded. I kept walking. "Well?" She was hopping beside me, punching my shoulder. "What do you think?" What could I say? I didn't want to hurt her feelings. I just shrugged. "Wow, that impressed, huh?" She was mocking me. She reached into her bag and pulled out a rat. "Maybe he's shy, Cinnamon. Maybe he'll tell you how thrilled he was to see the sign." She set him up on my shoulder. I yelped. I swept the rat off and sent him flying to the ground. She scooped him up and stroked him, all the while staring at me, dumbstruck. I could not face her. I turned and walked on alone. She called, "I guess you don't want to hear my practice speech, huh?" I did not answer. I did not look back. The next day I faced the full impact of the sign. I thought I had truly suffered from the spillover of Stargirl's shunning, but that was nothing now that the full turn was turned on me. Of course, Kevin, thankfully, talked to me. So did a few other friends, but the rest was silent. A second deserted post upon the one I already lived in, where high was as rare as rain. I came to the courtyard in the morning before the opening bell, and all I saw were the backs of heads. People shouldered past me, calling others. Doors closed in my face. There was laughter, there was fun, but it skipped over me like a flat stone on water. One morning I was running a teacher's errand, and I saw someone named Renshaw walking across the courtyard. I barely knew the kid, but we were the only 2 in the courtyard at the moment, and I had to speak, touch the stone I knew was hot. "Renshaw," I called. There was no other voice but mine. "Renshaw!" He never turned, never waved, never slowed down. He kept walking away from me, opened a door, and was gone. "So what?" I kept telling myself. "What do you care? You never speak to each other. What's Renshaw to you?" But I did care. I couldn't help myself from caring. At that moment, there was nothing more I wanted in the world than a nod from Renshaw. I prayed that the door would burst open and he would be there saying, "Sorry, Borlock, I wasn't listening. What did you want?" But the door stayed closed, and I knew what it was like to be invisible. "I'm invisible," I said to Kevin at lunch. "Nobody hears me. Nobody sees me. I'm the invisible man." Kevin just looked at his lunch and wagged his head. "How long's it gonna go on?" I demanded. He shrugged. "What did I do?" My voice was louder than I intended. He chewed. He stared. At last he said, "You know what you did." I stared at him like he was crazy. I badgered him for some time more. But, of course, he was perfectly right. I knew exactly what I had done. I had linked myself to an unpopular person. That was my crime. I'm angry. the that like, why would you? It's a basketball game. It's a basketball game that they're all mad over. They're mad over a basketball game when they never won basketball games before this year in the story. Like, that was stated, and they're this mad over losing a basketball game. It doesn't make sense. This is bullying over a basketball game. Over someone being nice to the enemy in a basketball game. Honestly, I'm angry at these characters. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. If that happens to somebody, don't be one of the people who just ignores them. Because that's not, no. Yeah, well, that's all for today. Yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Bye.